Welcome to the Unity Movement and the Truth Network. And before I get started today, I want to apologize to you all for, getting off track a little bit. The last couple of messages that I put out, found myself in a situation where I got back into preaching instead of doing what God had created and purpose for me to do in the earth. And I found myself preaching because I so love the interaction with people. I so love to delve into the hearts and to the problems and to the souls of people in trying to find and present a word to people that would help them through and in or either out of their situation. So I found myself wanting to preach to you instead of doing what God had created and called me to do, which was to save the world with his gospel. To save the world with his gospel. And as opposed to preaching a message that may be filled with emotions that may sometimes cause us not to necessarily hear important pieces of what's being said, I just wanted to have a conversation with you so that absent your emotions, absent all of the religious overtones that comes with preaching and hearing a awe-inspiring word that has come from the throne of God, I wanted to present God's message, God's gospel, in a manner that would allow you to really listen. To really hear what's being said, not, listening for keywords, not being filled with emotions, not listening in a rush to find out what the message is all about, but listening in a non-distracted way for content. Because again, if we're going to save the world with God's gospel, then it is important that we know what his gospel is. And I ask you to listen because throughout our journey together, you will probably, undoubtedly, hear me say things that you've never heard before spoken in your church. Probably will have never heard it spoken in your synagogue, in your mosque, or in your temple. What I will say to you paints a picture and it provides a truth that is indisputable. It provides us a truth that would help us to see God in the context of looking at him from the beginning of the creation of heaven and earth. The words I am about to speak to your hearing are words on how we go about saving the world for God by saving the world for good against evil. And I don't proclaim to be the world's best orator. I don't claim to be the wisest man to live in the earth. I don't put upon myself any of the accolades that we so desire to be spoken about ourselves. But even absent those accolades, what I can tell you that I am in possession of is God's truth about him. I do possess the truth about his will for humanity, not portions of humanity, not subsets of humanity, not humans in a particular region in the earth, not humans that live at a particular time in the earth, but what God has given in helping us save this world for good against evil is His truth. And that truth is able to stand up against any era of time, any region in the earth, any people that have walked the face of the earth. And it stands upon itself, absent human religions. It's God's truths, regardless of our human ethnicities. It's God's truths, regardless of our nationalities. And it applies to every man and woman that has ever walked the face of this earth. And what you must understand about God, or the God of creation and His will for humanity, is that God didn't just send us into the earth without a purpose. He sent all of us into this earth with a purpose. His purpose wasn't just about our individual dreams, wasn't about our individual desires, nor our individual aspirations. He sent us all into the earth to save the world by knowing the truth, by living the truth, and by sharing the truth. Preaching the truth daily in our actions, that man might see our light and allow our lights of good to shine before man, that God be glorified. Let me say that again. God didn't just send us into the earth with a purpose that was just about our own individual dreams, our own individual desires, or our own individual aspirations. He sent us into the earth to know the truth, to live the truth, and to share the truth, preaching it daily in our actions, that our lights might shine before others through our good works, that He might be glorified. From the beginning, the charge has always been about the God of creation being glorified. It has always been about what He was doing, either independent of us or through us, that He might be glorified. We must know the truth before we can live or share the truth. And the truth is that there is only one God of creation, who in the beginning created the heavens, this earth, and the life forms He created and sustained in the earth, to include all Homo sapiens, or all human beings. Let me say that again. In order for us to be able to live the truth and share the truth, it is absolutely imperative that we know the truth. And the truth is that regardless of everything that you've been told, that there is only one God of creation, who in the beginning created the heavens, this earth, and all the life forms ever created and sustained in this earth. Again, I remind you that God's goal has always been about Him being glorified. And I remind you of this because too often we lose sight of this in our thinking and our conversations about religion. And we begin thinking that our purpose in the earth is about religion, instead of realizing that our purpose is really about glorifying the God of creation, who predates all human religions and all religious deities. Again, I want you to get this, because oftentimes we begin to think it's about our religious affiliations. We begin thinking it's about the religions that we belong to or the religious deities that we pledge our allegiance to, instead of realizing, absent our religion, absent the religious deity of our religion, that there is one creator who predates all humans, all human religions, and all religious deities, and that he is the God of creation. And it is him whom we should glorify through our actions. Again, we must know the truth before we can live and share the truth. And again, too often we get caught up in glorifying our religion and our religious deities instead of glorifying the God of creation, who in the beginning created the heavens, this earth, and all the life forms that has ever lived in this earth. This is why when people begin talking about religion, if we are to save the world with God's gospel, we must begin talking about the God of creation, who in the beginning created the heavens, the earth, and all the people in the earth. When they begin talking about religion, we must begin talking about the God of creation who predates human religions. We must begin talking about the God of creation who predates religious deities. Beginning with the truth about God is where we must begin our conversations with others. And we must begin, even before we engage in conversations with others, we must begin by preaching this truth in our actions, which means that we must begin with the revelation that there's only one God of creation, who in the beginning created the heavens, the earth, and all the life forms to ever live in this earth. Well, what I want you to understand is that nobody knows definitively how old the heavens and the earth is. Nobody that lives in this earth can say with absolute certainty how old definitively the heavens and the earth is. However, there are estimates that would suggest that the earth is about 4 billion years old. Again, that's billion with a B, years old. And that our earth has witnessed many different ages and many different advances throughout its history. To include the age dinosaurs dominated the earth some 200 million years ago. The age cats, dogs, elephants, horses, and bats emerged some 60 million years ago. Has witnessed the Ice Age, which was roughly 1.5 million years ago. Has also witnessed the Paleolithic period of the Stone Age, which was when the first Homo sapiens are recorded to have lived in the earth some 200,000 years ago. And I've mentioned those particular ages, and there are many more that I'll point out. But I mentioned those, and I'll stop right here to remind you that all of those ages that I just named occurred before the advent of organized religion and before the establishment of religious deities. Again, I'll say that because, again, I want you to get this, because, again, you can't live and share the truth unless you know the truth. And the truth is that of those ages and particular times in history that I've mentioned, all did happen before the advent of organized religions and religious deities. What I want you to realize is that even then, was the God of creation, responsible for creating and sustaining all life forms in the earth, to include the Homo sapiens that he had created during those particular times in the earth. Again, it wasn't about a particular religion. It wasn't about a particular ethnicity. It wasn't about a particular nationality. It was about there having only been one God spanning 4 billion years that is responsible for creating and sustaining all life forms in this earth, who we should give and extend glory to. So when people begin talking about their religion, we are to divert them by talking about the God of creation, who is before the advent of the particular religion that the person you're conversing with may be talking about. Because we must understand that even the first known religion to humanity, even the first, is only about 9,000 years old, or was organized or formed in about 9,000 BC, which would, I guess at this point, make it about 11,000 years old. But again, if the earth is 4 billion years old, humans are recorded to have lived in the earth 200,000 years ago, and the first human religion known to man wasn't established or organized until 9,000 BC in central Anatolia, or nowadays modern day Turkey, then we must understand that God, the God of creation, had to have predated the advent of human religions. And not only that, he had to be responsible for creating and sustaining the lives of all those life forms that lived prior to 9,000 BC, when the first human religion was organized. Again, this is important because oftentimes we confuse our purpose in this earth by the things that are taught via our human religions and our religious systems. Again, I want you to remember that the earth is, according to studies and estimates, about 4 billion years old. Homo sapiens, or humans like us in our likeness, lived in the earth over 200,000 years ago. The oldest human religion is only about 11,000 years ago. And then I want you to realize that that religion is not even one of the recognizable religions that we pledge our allegiance to today. It's not one of the major religions that we have pledged allegiance to. And if it's not one of the major religions, but God was creating and responsible for sustaining lives even prior to it, that says to us that God predates all of the religions known to man. Again, the earliest known recognizable human religion to man is Hinduism. And it's only about 4,000 years old, having been introduced during the Bronze Age of history. Again, I indicated that I would continue talking about the various ages in history, so that we see that God, only one God, predates all the various ages in history. Predates all the religions known to man. Predates all things known to man. Who in the beginning created the heavens, the earth, and the life forms he created and sustained in this earth. And I say this and I want you to understand this because, again, it's not our religious deities that deserve the glory, but it's the God of creation that deserves the glory, because it's Him who from the beginning has been responsible for creating and sustaining all life forms in the earth. All life forms in the earth. I want you to know that it wasn't a new God during the advent of Hinduism. It was the same God who in the beginning took upon the role and the responsibility of creating and sustaining life forms in the earth. Humans invented Hinduism, but those same humans that invented Hinduism were also sustained in the earth, not by the religious God of Hinduism, but by the God of creation who in the beginning created the heavens and the earth. This is important. This is important because, again, we fight over different religious deities and different human religions, when at the core of life is the God of creation, who in the beginning is only one, who created the heavens and the earth, who also is responsible for sustaining all life forms in the earth, who is the God of creation that should be glorified. Again, there's a period in history that's called the Iron Age. And this Iron Age spans from about 1300 BC to about 200 AD. And it is during this period of time that Jesus of Nazareth lived in the earth. It's during this time that the earth experienced the miracles wrought through the life of Jesus of Nazareth. But understand that God did not wait 4 billion years after creating the earth and about 195,000 years after creating Homo sapiens to change who He was, because He had sent Jesus of Nazareth into the earth. He was the God that was creating and sustaining lives before He sent Jesus of Nazareth into the earth, and He is the God of creation who still is responsible for creating and sustaining lives even after He has called Jesus of Nazareth out of the earth. Again, our purpose isn't just about our own dreams, desires, and aspirations, but it's about saving the world with God's truth in our actions, that man might see our good works, that the God of creation be glorified. Well, that is what Jesus of Nazareth believed. It is what He lived, and it is what He taught to those He shared His message with. Again, as I said in the beginning, God's purpose is that we save the world for good against evil by knowing the truth, by living the truth, and by sharing the truth. Well, it is what Jesus did, which is why He said that it is God who should be glorified. He recognized that in the beginning, 4 billion years ago, before He was created and placed into the earth, that there was one God of creation who had created the heavens and this earth. He realized that 200,000 years ago that there was a group of people called Homo sapiens that God was responsible for creating and sustaining in the earth. But even before the advent of Christianity, there were other religions, human religions known to man. Not to include the first religion, that was established or organized in Central Anatolia or nowadays Turkey. Before Christianity, there was the advent of Confucianism. Before the advent of Buddhism, before the advent of Taoism, before the advent of Jainism, before Zoroastrianism, before Judaism, before Hinduism, is one God. The common denominator in all that is that there is someone, something that had to sustain the lives of all those people even before their conversion into their human religion. Before they converted, they still had to be created and sustained in the earth. After they left the earth, there was still the need that a God create and sustain life in the earth. Before humans were created and placed in the earth, there still had to be a God of creation who was responsible for creating and sustaining life in the earth. And it is that creator God that Jesus of Nazareth talked about being glorified. It is that God of creation that Jesus of Nazareth referenced when he taught us to pray, "Our Father who art in heaven." He did not speak about religious deities or human religions. He said, because he recognized that before there were humans, that there was, or that there is, a God of creation who is responsible for creating and sustaining all lives, that our Father. Talking about the God of creation and his creations brings me to yet another of the many ages in this earth that have been lived out by humans. And it's the early Middle Age. I mention this era or age in time only because it's the age that the Prophet Muhammad lived in the earth. It's the age that Islam was invented. But again, I remind you that although Islam was invented during this particular age or era in the earth, it's not the era or the age in the earth that God, the Creator, was invented. He predates this era. He predates the era that Jesus of Nazareth walked in the earth. He predates the era of time that David walked in the earth. He predates the time when Moses walked in the earth. He predates the time when Adam walked in the earth. He predates all that man knows, all that we could even imagine or even fathom to know. Because in the beginning, whether it was 4.5 billion years ago or whether it was 8.5 billion years ago, there was a God, one God of creation, who was responsible for creating the heavens, the earth, and all the people that has ever lived in the earth. Islam was created during the early Middle Ages, but the God of creation had already been. It's not the age in the earth that saw the invention of the earth, nor is it the age in time or in history that saw the creation of humanity. Because as I've said, Homo sapiens are recorded to have lived in the earth over 200,000 years ago. Humans like us, over 200,000 years ago. But even the earliest, even the prehistoric religions are only 11,000 years old. That says that there is a span of about 190 years from the first Homo sapiens being created in this earth to the first human religion being organized in this earth. But someone had to be responsible for creating and sustaining lives before 11,000 years ago. Before 2,000 years ago, when Jesus of Nazareth walked the earth. Before Muhammad walked the earth. There had to be a God of creation who was responsible for creating the first human life, just as he is responsible for creating the middle human life or the last human life. And it's the God of creation, because he has always been God from the beginning of the earth. Just as the sun has always been consistent in its makeup from its beginning, just like gravity has always been consistent in its makeup, just as oxygen has remained the same from the beginning, just as rain continually falls from the heavens down into the earth in the same form and fashion from the beginning, just as the moon is the same from the beginning until now, even as Homo sapiens are the same from the beginning until now, in that we are all flesh, in that we are all water, and in that we are all spirit. Well, God, the Creator, is the same in that he is responsible for creating and sustaining all life forms that has ever lived in this earth. This is important. This is important. Because until we recognize that there's only one God of creation, we will continue to miss the mark, thinking that it is about our religions being glorified instead of the God of creation, who is before all religions being glorified. You must understand that ages nor eras in history don't change the things and the life forms created by the God of creation. Although I'll admit that we've advanced technologically, we've advanced in our learning, we've advanced in our medicines, but the things that marks the beginning of life, being created in the womb of a mother, by the bonding of male semen with the female egg, that hasn't changed. Being born male or female from the beginning hasn't changed, although we've invented various religious systems. Rain falling downward hadn't changed, although we use various words to describe our nationalities or our ethnicities. God creating and sustaining lives by his breath of life hadn't changed, although we developed the internet. The things that mark the end of life in this earth is consistent from the beginning unto the end, although we've advanced in many other ways. And those things are consistent from the beginning until the end because God, one God of creation, created them all, created us all. Those things are unchanged because one God is responsible for creating and sustaining all life forms in this earth. Which is why it's not our religion that should be glorified. It's not the inventor of our religions that should be glorified. It's not our religious deities that should be glorified. It's not our ethnicities that should be glorified. It's not our money that should be glorified. It's not our homes that we should glorify. It's not our ministers or clerics or spiritual advisors that should be glorified? It's the God of creation, who in the beginning began by creating the heavens and the earth. That should be glorified. It's the God that has seen all the ages and all the eras in this earth. That should be glorified. It's the God that has created life in all the eras and times and histories in this earth. That should be glorified. When the world begins talking about religion, if we're to save the world, then we must divert the world's attention not to religion, but away from religion to God, who in the beginning created the heavens and the earth. If we divide God, then how can we be united as a people? We're divided by the core, essential element of life, God. And if we're divided in that, then we're divided in all the things that happen as a result of that beginning foundation. So, if you get anything out of this message, it's to understand that God had to have a way of looking at humans and judging humans before the advent of religion. Because we know that he was creating and sustaining humans before the advent of human religions. We know that, or at least I hope we know or believe, that one God isn't responsible for creating the sun, and that another God is responsible for creating the moon. I hope we don't believe that one God is responsible for creating a certain subset of humans, i.e. Christians, and that another God is responsible for creating Muslims or Jews. I hope we understand that irrespective of the labels that we use to identify ourselves, that there is only one God that created all of us, which makes us all human beings, all Homo sapiens, irrespective of our color of skin, irrespective of our dialect, irrespective of our physical features and characteristics, even irrespective of our actions. We're still one human body, form, species of people, created by one creator, God, who in the beginning created the heavens and the earth. I'm not going to rush through this because, again, it's bigger than preaching. It's about saving the world. We've got a job to do. We've got purpose that we have to fulfill. We have lives that we are to impact. We have a God that we are to glorify. And I'm learning that quality is always better than quantity. Yeah, I could rush through this and maybe get 1 or 2 quickly, 3 or 4 quickly, but I can take my time and do what God has purposed me to do. And instead of getting 1 or 2 on the first end, get 50 and 100 and 200 and 300,000 on the back end, that God be glorified and that the message doesn't stop with me but only begins with me and is multiplied infinitely in and throughout the earth. Well, obviously, I would love the gratification of that which is instant, but I also realize that oftentimes that which is instant isn't sustained. But that comes through toil and strife and time becomes the things that direct us in our actions. And I would rather you be directed by the truth so that you live the truth and so that you're able to share the truth than to give you something that feels good, that only helps you, that ends with you. We've got to save the world, people. It begins now, this day, in this earth, at this particular time, at this moment. I don't care where you are in your life. I don't care what you're dealing with. You got to know that you were sent here with a purpose. And that purpose is to save the world for God, by saving the world for good, by knowing the truth, by living the truth, and by sharing the truth. Until next time, thank you for tuning in to the Unity Movement and God's message in this earth at this time. I love you. God bless. And let's get about the business of saving the world for good against evil. Let's get about the business of uniting the religions so that they know that all the things that we use to divide us are only distractions to keep us from recognizing that there's only one God who created all of us and that He's a God of good. Let's get about the business of God, the Creator, and realize that irrespective of the different names that we use to refer to Him, that He is before the names that we use. Because 4 billion years ago when He created the earth, I don't believe that He was changed based upon the name that the earth used to refer to Him. 200,000 years ago when He created Homo sapiens, I don't believe that He was changed or moved by the names that they used to refer to Him. 11,000 years ago when the first human religion was organized and established, I don't believe that He was changed based upon the different names that may have been used during that particular time in the earth to refer to Him. God is God, and there is only one God who in the beginning created the heavens, the earth, and all the life forms in the earth. I love you. God bless you. And until the next time, live in God's peace and purpose, because there's life in your purpose. There's joy in your purpose. There's fulfillment in your purpose. There's favor in your purpose. Goodbye.